I, a 34-year-old male, described the absolute train wreck that my marriage became. Let me share a bit about myself. I grew up in a blue-collar family in the Midwest. My father worked the same factory job for 35 years, coming home with grease under his fingernails every day. He taught me that a man's word and work ethic are all he truly has in this world. My mother stayed home with us 4 kids, stretching my dad's paycheck with coupons and home-cooked meals. We weren't exactly poor, but luxuries were rare and deeply appreciated. I wasn't the smartest kid in school, but I worked harder than most. Sports came naturally to me, mainly football and wrestling. I earned a partial scholarship to a state college, but dropped out after 2 years when a construction company I worked for during summers offered me full-time work with good pay. My parents were disappointed I didn't finish my degree, but at 21, I was earning more than most of my friends who graduated. I started working in construction at 19, putting in long hours and learning every aspect of the business. By 26, I had worked my way up to site manager. At 29, I took the biggest risk of my life and started my own contracting business. The first year was tough, ramen noodles and sleepless nights. But by the 3rd year, I had a solid reputation, 6 guys working for me, and contracts lined up 6 months in advance. I built this life from nothing but sweat and determination. 8 years ago, I met Jessica at my buddy Dave's barbecue. She was a fiery, ambitious woman working as a marketing coordinator for a tech startup. Her intense green eyes lit up when she talked about her career goals. We clicked instantly. Both of us were driven and had big plans. She seemed impressed that I had started my own business without a degree, saying it showed real-world intelligence that was sexier than any diploma. After dating for 3 years, we married in a small ceremony with about 50 guests. Her idea, though she later complained it wasn't Instagram-worthy enough. Those first few months were great. We'd come home tired from work, cook together, binge Netflix, and couldn't keep our hands off each other. We talked about building something meaningful together. Fast forward to 2 years of marriage, and Jessica was pregnant with our daughter, Lily. It wasn't entirely planned, but we were excited. Jessica had always talked about wanting to be a stay-at-home mom, at least until our kids started school. I was earning enough for us to live comfortably in our 3-bedroom house, which I bought before we married with the down payment from a flip project I did on weekends, an important detail for later. So I supported her decision to quit her job. Her pregnancy was rough, with lots of morning sickness and swollen ankles. I did everything I could, took over all the cooking, hired a cleaning service twice a month, and satisfied her weird cravings, like pickle juice and chocolate ice cream at 2 in the morning. I even converted the 2nd bedroom into a nursery myself, painting it the soft yellow color she wanted and assembling all the furniture. When Lily was born, Jessica struggled with postpartum issues. I understood that hormones are intense, from what I know. I took 3 weeks off work, which was tough for a small business owner, but family comes first. I handled night feedings, diaper changes, and everything I could while keeping my business from collapsing. When I returned to work, I hired a part-time mother's helper to come in 3 days a week so Jessica could nap, shower, or do whatever she needed. I started taking on more clients, sometimes working 12-hour days and weekends to afford the lifestyle Jessica wanted. She constantly compared our life to her college friends on social media, those with wealthy husbands who took them on luxury vacations twice a year. I worked hard to provide, taking on custom home builds that paid better but required more attention. We weren't living like royalty, but we had a nice house in a good neighborhood, 2 reliable cars, and Jessica could buy whatever she wanted for herself or Lily without checking the bank account. I thought I was building something for us. I thought we were on the same page. It was a Tuesday in November. I remember because we had our first snow that morning, and I spent an extra hour on site ensuring the new foundation we had poured was properly covered. Then I dealt with a supplier who sent the wrong fixtures for the Peterson job. By the time I got home, it was after 7 in the evening, and I had been working since 5 in the morning. I walked through the door, boots caked in mud and concrete dust, to find Jessica sitting at the kitchen island, scrolling through her phone. She barely looked up. Lily, my beautiful 15-month-old with her mom's green eyes and my dark hair, was strapped in her high chair, Cheerios scattered everywhere, looking like she had been there for a while. "Hey babe, sorry I'm late. The supplier screwed up again, and..." I started, scooping up Lily, who squealed and reached for me with sticky hands. "I need a break to find myself again," Jessica interrupted, finally looking up from her phone. "Being a mom has stolen my identity." I stood there, still in my work boots, holding our giggling toddler who was now trying to grab my beard. "What do you mean, a break? Like a vacation? You know I can take some time off next month after the Miller project wraps up if you want to go somewhere." "No, Mike, a break from us. I'm not happy anymore. You don't meet my emotional needs. I feel like I'm just Mike's wife or Lily's mom now. I need space to figure out who I am." This came from the woman who hadn't worked in 2 years, who had a weekly spa day I paid for, who had a cleaning service come twice a month, also on my dime, and who had a mother's helper 3 days a week. I was working 60 to 70 hours a week to give her the life she claimed she wanted, and apparently that made me the problem. "Is there someone else?" I asked, the question slipping out before I could stop it. The way her eyes flicked to her phone for a split second told me everything I needed to know. "Don't be ridiculous," she snapped, standing up suddenly. "This toxic masculinity thing where you assume I must be cheating just because I need space is exactly the problem. This is why I feel suffocated. You don't understand emotional labor or the mental load of being a mother." I took a deep breath, bouncing Lily, who was starting to sense the tension. "Okay, let's talk about this. What does a break look like to you? Where would you go? What about Lily?" Jessica rolled her eyes, as if I were missing the point entirely. "I don't know yet, Mike. That's why I need space to think. God, you always need everything spelled out like a contract." I didn't push it that night. I got Lily cleaned up, fed her a proper dinner since it looked like all she had eaten were dry Cheerios, gave her a bath, and put her to bed with 3 of her favorite stories. By the time I came back downstairs, Jessica was watching a reality show and didn't acknowledge me. I grabbed a soda from the fridge and crashed in the guest room. My gut was screaming that something wasn't right, but 8 years together makes you want to believe the best about your partner. Maybe she was right. Maybe I was too focused on providing and not enough on connecting. I fell asleep wondering how I could fix things, not yet realizing there was nothing to fix. The foundation was already cracked beyond repair. 2 days passed in a strange, tense standoff. Jessica was suddenly too tired to handle Lily in the mornings, so I started getting up earlier to care for her before heading to work, dropping her off with my mom, who was happy to watch her granddaughter. When I came home, Jessica would be leaving for a girls' night or some vague self-care activity. On the 3rd day, my buddy Ryan texted me during lunch, "Dude, call me a sap, it's about Jess." I stepped away from the site and called him from my truck. "Look, man, I didn't want to get involved, but this ain't right," Ryan started, sounding uncomfortable. "Tara, my girlfriend, is in this gaming group with Jess, some online role-playing thing on Discord. She's been watching Jess overshare about your marriage for weeks now." My stomach dropped. "What kind of oversharing?" "She's been going on about how you're emotionally unavailable and too focused on providing rather than connecting. Says you guys haven't had a meaningful conversation in months." I thought back to the many times I had tried to talk to Jessica about our days, Lily's development, or future plans, only to get one-word answers while she stared at her phone. "There's this dude in the group, calls himself Ethan," Ryan continued. "Tara says Jess has been private messaging him constantly, like staying up until 3 in the morning talking to this guy." That explained why Jessica was suddenly too tired in the mornings. "Has Tara seen their private chats?" I asked, already knowing I wouldn't like the answer. "Not all of them, but enough. Jess was bragging in a group chat yesterday about how she told you she wanted a break, and how you just accepted it like the emotional robot she always knew you were. Said this Ethan guy actually listens to her." I thanked Ryan for the heads up and sat in my truck for a good 20 minutes, staring at nothing. The pieces were falling into place. The sudden need for space, the girls' nights that never seemed to involve actual girls, the constant texting. That night when Jessica was in the shower, her new routine of hour-long showers with her phone brought into the bathroom, I did something I never thought I'd do. I checked her Discord on her laptop, which she had left open. The messages made me physically sick. She and this Ethan guy were exchanging explicit messages, complete with photos I didn't know existed. She was telling him how intellectually stimulating he was compared to me, just a construction guy apparently, despite running a successful business. She claimed she felt truly seen by him after just a few weeks of online chatting. There were detailed critiques of our sex life, with Jessica complaining I only wanted sex without emotional intimacy, conveniently forgetting the countless times I had tried to connect only to be shut down. She shared intimate details about my body and insecurities, things I had told her in confidence. The worst part? From what I could piece together, this dude was unemployed, living in his mom's basement across the country in Oregon, and had never been in a serious relationship at 29. But he was a free spirit who understood her on a deeper level and wrote terrible poetry that Jessica gushed over like he was the next Shakespeare. They were already making plans for her to visit him, discussing how much child support and alimony she could get from me, which apparently would be enough for them to start a life together. There was even talk about how Lily would adjust to the move once things were settled. I took screenshots of everything, emailed them to myself, then closed the laptop exactly as I found it. I felt hollow, like someone had scooped out my insides with a rusty spoon. When Jessica came out of the bathroom in her robe, phone in hand, I couldn't hold it in anymore. "So, who's Ethan?" I asked, my voice surprisingly steady. Her face went through about 5 expressions in 2 seconds: shock, fear, anger, calculation, and finally indignation. "You went through my private conversations?" she shrieked, clutching her phone to her chest like I might lunge for it. "How dare you invade my privacy like that?" "Your laptop was open, Jess. It wasn't exactly Fort Knox. Answer the question. Who's Ethan, and why are you planning to take my daughter across the country to live with him?" "It's not like that. He's just a friend who actually listens to me, unlike you. And if you were meeting my emotional needs, I wouldn't have had to look elsewhere. This is your fault." I reminded her who paid for the phone she was clutching, the internet connection she used to chat with her friend, the roof over her head, and everything else that gave her the luxury to sit around sexting strangers while I worked my ass off. "Oh, so now you're going to be financially abusive?" she spat. "Throw it in my face that you make all the money? That's why I need someone like Ethan who values me for me, not as some trophy wife." I almost laughed at the absurdity. Trophy wife? When was the last time she had even put on makeup or real clothes for me? Meanwhile, I was lucky to get a grunt of acknowledgement when I came home from 12-hour workdays. "I'm going to ask you one more time," I said, keeping my voice even though I wanted to punch a wall. "Are you having an affair with this guy, emotional or otherwise?" "You can't have an affair with someone you've never met in person," she said, like she was explaining something to a toddler. "And even if I was, it would be because you drove me to it with your emotional neglect." That was all I needed to hear. Her non-denial confirmed she was indeed involved with this guy, and the blame-shifting told me everything. "I'm sleeping in the guest room until we figure this out," I said, turning to leave the room. "Fine, run away from the conversation just like you always do," she called after me. This is why our marriage is failing. I didn't take the bait. I closed the guest room door, lay on the bed and stared at the ceiling, mentally replaying the last few months. How had I missed the signs? Had I really been that absent? Or was she rewriting our history to justify her actions? One thing was certain, I wasn't going to be played for a fool. If Jessica wanted a break to explore things with Shakespeare the basement dweller, she could have it, but it wouldn't be on her terms. The next morning at 4:30 in the morning, while Jessica was still asleep, I got up, dressed, and took Lily to my mom's house. I explained enough of the situation for her to understand it was serious, and being the saint she is, she agreed to watch Lily for the day without prying for details I wasn't ready to share. Instead of going to the job site, I went to my office and made 3 calls to Dave, my lawyer buddy, who handled contracts for my business, to my bank to schedule an appointment, and to a security company a client had recommended. I realized I needed to be smart. While Jessica was wrapped up in her online emotional affair, thinking she held all the cards, I started getting my ducks in a row. Dave was blunt when I laid out the situation. "Mike, buddy, you need to protect yourself and Lily. Jessica's already shown she's willing to put her wants ahead of her daughter's needs." He advised me to document everything, screenshots of her conversations with Ethan, records of all the money I spent supporting her, the hours I worked while she was finding herself online. He also suggested I start keeping a log of Jessica's parenting, or lack thereof, and my own involvement with Lily. "Courts generally favor the mother," he warned. "But if you can show she's an uninvolved parent and you're the stable one despite working full-time, you've got a shot at primary custody." I had the security company install cameras in the common areas of our house, completely legal since I owned it, and informed Jessica they were being installed for security. She rolled her eyes but was too busy texting to argue much. At the bank, I opened a separate account and started moving some money there. Not enough to raise suspicion, but enough to have a cushion if things went south fast. I also pulled our financial records for the past year, showing exactly how much had gone to support Jessica's finding herself activities. Next, I reduced my work hours slightly. Instead of 12-hour days, I cut back to 9 or 10, delegating more to my foreman, Tim, who was more than capable. This gave me more time with Lily, and let me document what a hands-on dad I was despite working hard. I started taking Lily to her doctor appointments, which Jessica had forgotten twice already, handling most of the grocery shopping, finding the fridge mysteriously empty too often, and taking detailed notes of Jessica's daily schedule, which consisted mainly of sleeping until 10, being on her phone until midnight, and doing the absolute minimum with Lily. Jessica was so wrapped up in her fantasy world that she didn't notice what I was doing. She'd sit on FaceTime with this Ethan dude right in the living room, barely acknowledging me, or sometimes even Lily, who would toddle up to her saying, "Mama," only to be absent-mindedly patted on the head and redirected to her toys. One night I overheard her telling him, "Once I figure out the logistics, I can come visit you." Mike is so clueless he thinks this break is temporary. He's still sleeping in the guest room like a good little boy. That's when I knew this wasn't salvageable, and I wasn't going to be her backup plan or her ATM while she tested out life with discount Shakespeare. I went to 3 different divorce attorneys for consultations, finally settling on Sarah, a no-nonsense female lawyer who specialized in fathers' rights cases. She looked over the evidence I had gathered and nodded approvingly. "You've done your homework, Mike. Most guys in your situation are reactive instead of proactive. Let's put together a strategy that protects your rights and Lily's well-being." Meanwhile, to maintain appearances, I started going to therapy, not because I thought it would save our marriage, but because I needed professional documentation of my efforts to work on myself, in contrast to Jessica's complete lack of effort. Plus, it actually helped to talk through the mind-bending experience of watching my wife dismantle our life for an online fantasy. Dr. Chen was direct. "Mike, from what you've described, Jessica is showing classic signs of someone in the affair fog. She's rewriting your marital history to justify her actions, compartmentalizing her role as a mother to pursue this new excitement, and blame-shifting to make you responsible for her choices." "So, what do?" I asked. "Continue documenting, don't engage in arguments, and prepare yourself for the possibility that she's not coming back from this fog anytime soon, if ever." It hurt to hear, but deep down I knew he was right. The woman I married was gone, or maybe she had never really existed. Either way, I needed to protect myself and my daughter from whatever storm was coming. As weeks passed, Jessica became more entitled and rude with each passing day. It was like she dropped another mask, revealing the person she had apparently been all along. One Sunday, my only full day off, she handed me a list of chores to do because she was too emotionally drained to handle them. I've been talking to my life coach, some random woman from her Discord who charged $200 per hour for Zoom calls, as I saw on the credit card statement, and she says I need to prioritize my self-care. As the male partner who's emotionally stunted, you should be stepping up more around here. I looked at the list: mowing the lawn, fixing the garage door, cleaning the gutters, doing all the laundry, including her delicates, and meal prepping for her for the week. Nothing for Lily, I noticed. I laughed and handed it back. "I'll handle my half of the parenting and household responsibilities, just like I always have, but I'm not your servant." She went ballistic, ranting about the mental load of being a mother and how I couldn't possibly understand because of my male privilege. Meanwhile, our daughter was playing happily in the playpen I had set up that morning after making her breakfast. "What mental load, Jessica? I'm handling all of Lily's doctor appointments, most of the cooking and shopping, and still working 50 hours a week. What exactly are you doing that's so mentally taxing?" "You just don't get it," she screamed, storming off to, you guessed it, video chat with Ethan. The irony. The security cameras revealed Jessica spent maybe 2 to 3 hours actually engaging with Lily daily. The rest was screen time. Either Lily watching tablets or Jessica on her phone with Ethan. She started criticizing everything about me, how I parented. "You're too rough when you play with her," because I tossed Lily in the air and she giggled uncontrollably. "My work, it's just construction, not rocket science," despite the fact my just construction business paid for her entire lifestyle. "And my fitness routine, so vain to go to the gym when you should be helping me." Though she never specified what she needed help with since I was already doing most things. The woman who once told me my work ethic and strength were what attracted her to me was now using them as weapons against me, like it was a character flaw that I could frame a house, lift heavy things, or work until a job was done right. One day, she left a notebook open on the kitchen counter while she was in the bathroom. I'm not proud that I looked, but given everything that had happened, I felt justified. It was some kind of journal exercise her life coach had her doing, listing her ideal partner traits versus her current reality. Under ideal, she had written, "Intellectually stimulating, creative and sensitive, understands my emotional needs without me having to explain, prioritizes quality time over material things, sees me as an equal, not a mother-wife role, spiritual connection." Under current reality, me, obviously, she wrote, "only talks about work and practical matters, no creative hobbies or interests, emotionally unavailable, doesn't understand deeper needs, thinks providing financially is enough, sees me primarily as mother of his child, no spiritual dimension." I was stunned. In what universe was I the guy she was describing? I had taken up woodworking as a hobby years ago and had made half our furniture, including Lily's crib. I had tried countless times to talk about things beyond work, but got shut down with one-word answers. I had planned surprise dates until she started canceling last-minute for me time. It hit me then. Jessica had created a fictional version of me to justify her affair. In her mind, I was now the villain of her story, the obstacle to her happiness, not the same guy she had built a life with for 8 years. She came back from the bathroom and saw me looking at her notebook. "Seriously, you're going through my private thoughts now? This is exactly why I'm unhappy. You have no respect for my boundaries." "Respect works both ways, Jess," I said quietly. "You've got me painted as some emotionless robot, but that's not reality. That's the story you're telling yourself to feel better about what you're doing. You don't know anything about what I'm feeling. You never have. I just walked away. There was no point arguing with someone who was rewriting history to fit her narrative. I took Lily to the park instead, letting her toddle around the playground while I sat on a bench and tried to reconcile the woman I married with the stranger living in my house. That night, she didn't come home until after 11, claiming she had been with friends, though her location, still shared on our phones, showed she had been sitting in the parking lot of a Starbucks for 4 hours, presumably on a call with Ethan. She didn't ask about Lily, didn't check if she was okay, just went straight to the shower with her phone. It was like watching someone I loved turn into someone I didn't even recognize, and there wasn't a damn thing I could do about it. 4 weeks into her break, I came home from the gym to find Jessica had ordered $600 worth of new clothes on my credit card. When I questioned it, she said, "I deserve to feel good about myself. Your constant criticism is why I needed this break." I was too tired to argue. I just nodded, went upstairs to shower, and spent some quality time with Lily, who was thrilled to show me she could stack blocks higher than before. That night, Jessica left her laptop open when she went to take a bath. A message popped up from Ethan. Curiosity got the better of me, so I looked. They were openly mocking me. She called me desperate and pathetic for still trying to fix things, by which she meant providing for my family and taking care of my daughter. She laughed about how I had started going to therapy, calling it hilarious that he thinks he can change. He's so clueless. She wrote, "Once I figure out child support and alimony, I can come see you. His business did really well last year, so I should get a nice payout. I've been researching, and Oregon law is better for mothers, so I'll file once I'm there with Lily. He'll have to pay for us to live near you." Something in me snapped, not in a rage, but in a moment of perfect clarity. I took pictures of the conversation, then closed her laptop. When she came out of the bathroom, wrapped in the plush robe I had gotten her for Christmas, I was sitting calmly at the kitchen island. "Good bath?" I asked. "Fine," she said, clearly suspicious of my calm demeanor. "So, I've been thinking about this break you wanted," I said, keeping my voice even. "And I think you're right. We do need to make some changes." Her eyes lit up, probably thinking I was going to offer some grand gesture to win her back. "I think it's time we stop pretending. You want to be with Ethan, so go be with him. You have until the end of the month to move out." Her face went from shock to anger in seconds. "Move out? This is my house too, and Lily stays with me. Actually, this house is solely in my name. I bought it before we were married, remember? I have the deed to prove it. And as for Lily, we'll let the courts decide who provides the more stable home environment." She pulled out her trump card. "No judge will take a child from her mother. I'll get full custody, and you'll be lucky to see her every other weekend." I smiled, which seemed to unnerve her more than any shouting would have. You'd be surprised what judges think about mothers who neglect their children to have online affairs. "I've documented everything, Jessica. Everything." For the first time, I saw fear in her eyes, but it quickly hardened back to defiance. "You're bluffing. You don't have anything." I pulled out my phone, opened my email, and showed her one of the screenshots I had taken. Her discussing with Ethan how she could minimize my parenting time so they could start fresh in Oregon. There's plenty more where that came from, including security footage of you ignoring Lily's crying because you were too busy sexting. How do you think a family court judge will view that? "You've been spying on me in my own home?" "My home," I corrected. "And yes, I installed security cameras after finding out my wife was planning to take my daughter across the country to live with some guy she met online. Perfectly legal. And it will be very interesting viewing for the custody evaluator." She tried a different tack, her voice softening as she reached for my arm. "Mike, come on, we can work this out. I was just blowing off steam with Ethan. You know you and Lily are my world." I gently removed her hand. "Save it, Jessica. I've seen the real you now, and honestly, I don't like her very much." She burst into tears, but I had seen enough of her acting to know they were as fake as her sudden claim of devotion. "What do you want from me?" she sobbed. "I want you to leave. Start your new life with Ethan or whoever, but Lily stays here in her home with a parent who puts her needs first. You can't do this to me. I'll fight you. I'll tell everyone what a controlling monster you are. Go ahead. I've got the receipts, as the kids say. Every neglectful moment, every plan to use me for money, every lie you've told. Your choice if you want all that made public in court." She stormed off, slamming the bedroom door. I slept soundly that night for the first time in weeks. The weight of indecision finally lifted from my shoulders. The next few weeks were a hurricane of her alternating between threats and tears. One day she would scream that she would take me for everything I had. The next she would sob about how she still loved me and Ethan was just a mistake. I remained calm through it all, which only infuriated her more. "Why aren't you fighting for me?" she demanded once. "Because you're not worth fighting for anymore," I replied simply. "The woman I loved wouldn't have done any of this. She tried to turn friends against me with wild stories about emotional abuse and controlling behavior. Most saw through it, especially once I calmly showed them evidence of what had really been happening. Her parents even called me to apologize for her behavior after she tried to spin some victim narrative to them. "We raised her better than this," her father said, genuine confusion in his voice. "I don't know what's gotten into her, but we want you to know we support you and Lily." True to my word, I filed for divorce and petitioned for primary custody of Lily. Jessica was stunned when my lawyer presented evidence of her neglect, security footage showing her ignoring Lily's cries while on calls with Ethan, screenshots of her telling him she couldn't wait to be free of mom duties, texts complaining about how motherhood was ruining her life. The judge was particularly unimpressed when my lawyer presented evidence of her plans to move across the country to be with a man she had never met in person, willing to uproot Lily from her stable home. "Mrs. Harris," the judge said, peering over his glasses, "this court's primary concern is the well-being of the minor child. Your communications suggest a concerning lack of priority for your daughter's stability and emotional needs." Jessica tried to argue that she had been suffering from postpartum depression and that I hadn't been supportive, but the timeline didn't add up. Lily was over a year old when she started her affair, and there was ample evidence of my efforts to support her parenting while she checked out. In the end, the judge awarded me primary physical custody of Lily, with Jessica getting supervised visitation until she could demonstrate stability and commitment to parenting. There was no alimony since our marriage was short and she was capable of working. Child support from her would be determined once she found employment. The day she had to move out, reality finally hit her. Ethan had been strangely quiet as the divorce proceedings got underway, his multiple daily messages dwindling to occasional check-ins. It turned out Prince Charming had ghosted her after realizing she wouldn't be bringing a fat divorce settlement to fund his gaming lifestyle. She stood in the living room, looking lost among the few boxes of personal items she was taking. I let her have whatever she wanted of the household items, but she didn't seem interested in anything practical. "Mike, please," she begged, tears streaming down her face. "I made a horrible mistake. I was depressed after having Lily and just got lost. We can fix this. I'll go to therapy. I'll delete all my accounts. I'll be the wife you deserve." "There's nothing to fix, Jessica. I deserve someone who sees my hard work as an expression of love, not as something to exploit. Lily deserves a mother who values her more than online attention. But where am I supposed to go? What am I supposed to do?" she cried, sounding like a child herself. "Your parents said you can stay with them until you find a job. As for what you do, that's up to you. For the first time in years, your choices are your own. So is the responsibility for them." She left that day with her parents, who came to help her move, both of them watching me with sad, apologetic eyes as they loaded her things into their SUV. I felt no joy in her distress, only a hollow relief that the worst was finally over. 2 months later, Jessica called me in tears. I almost didn't recognize her voice. She sounded broken. It turned out her fantasy romance had turned into a nightmare. After begging her parents for a loan to get a plane ticket, she had actually flown out to meet Ethan. She had even drained the small savings account she had, mostly money I had given her for emergencies, against all my warnings and her parents' pleas. She was convinced he was her soulmate. "He wasn't who he said he was, Mike," she sobbed. "As soon as I got there, he treated me like I was just some woman he'd met online. He took the rest of my money, nearly $3,000, saying we needed it for our place, then disappeared for days. He came back drunk, and when I confronted him, he laughed in my face. He said I was just a desperate housewife he'd been playing for kicks. He told all his friends I was easy and pathetic. She had found a small apartment back in town but couldn't afford the rent after her first month. Ethan had blocked her everywhere after bleeding her dry. Her supportive Discord friends had vanished when she needed actual help instead of validation. She couldn't find a job that paid enough after her employment gap. I made the biggest mistake of my life, she wept. I threw away everything good for a complete lie. Please, Mike, I know I don't deserve it, but can we try again? For Lily, for us. I'll do anything to make it right. I miss our family. I miss you. Part of me felt sorry for her, but a bigger part remembered how she had planned to use me, mock me, and take my daughter away. I'll help you find resources, I said finally, for Lily's sake. I need her mother to be stable, but that's it. You made your choice and actions have consequences. You can't mean that, she whispered. After everything we've been through? That's just it, Jess. We've been through hell, but you're the one who dragged us there. I'm finally finding peace. Lily is thriving. I won't risk that again. She broke down completely then, and despite everything, I felt a pang of the old affection. But I knew better now. Her tears had always been her most effective weapon. I can recommend some job placement services, I said. keeping my voice gentle but firm, and I know an apartment complex that has reasonable rents. But that's as far as my help goes. Can I at least see Lily more? The supervised visits are so clinical. Let's see how you do establishing stability first. Lily needs consistency, not someone who might disappear again when the next Ethan comes along. That hit her hard, but it needed to be said. She had shown who she was, and I believed her. Today, I have my daughter 80% of the time. I've scaled back work to spend more quality time with her, trusting my foreman, Tim, with more responsibility. I even made him a junior partner. I converted the home office into an epic playroom for Lily, with a reading nook, art station, and enough stuffed animals to start a small zoo. Jessica is slowly getting her act together with therapy and a retail job. She sees Lily regularly but knows she has to earn back trust. Our exchanges are civil, sometimes even friendly, but there's a wall there now that will never come down. She made sure of that. As for me, I'm dating a pediatric nurse named Claire, who I met at one of Lily's checkups. She thinks my dedication to my daughter and my work ethic are attractive, not things to mock. She appreciates the life I've built instead of comparing it to Instagram fantasies. She actually asks about my day and listens to the answer, even if it's just about concrete mixtures or zoning permits. The first time Claire came over for dinner and saw my woodworking shop in the garage, she asked thoughtful questions about the coffee table I was making. Jessica had called that same hobby boring and a waste of time when we were together. Sometimes the best revenge isn't making someone suffer, it's building a better life while they realize what they threw away. I dodged a bullet. And every time I see Jessica's face when she picks up Lily and glimpses the happy home she could have had, I know she realizes it too.